Welcome back to the College Football Pick'em Pod. We're back after our bye week. Miami had a bye week, so we decided to take one too. We've both been really busy. Maybe we just didn't want to get into the Miami-Virginia game. I didn't really want to think much about it afterwards. It was an embarrassing loss. The Canes are back against BC on Friday night, which should be a fun game, but it will be a tough one to bet. We got a good amount of games here to go over. But first, Phil, what do you have for us?
So first, I got some. Hang on one second. I have some great news out of Caneswear this week. The classic starter jackets you know and love are back. Brand new shipment is in, and a whole bunch are in stock. Green, orange, white, black. The most popular seems to be green, just like the last time. These won't last long. They're selling like hotcakes. So if you haven't already, get your starter jacket and all your Hurricanes gear at Caneswear on University Drive in the Arrowhead Shopping Center in Davie, or at the online store at caneswear.com. Will, I noticed, and I know most of these people are going to be listening to us. We only have a few people who watch us on YouTube, but I noticed you're wearing a North Carolina Tar Heels jacket. What is going on here?
Yeah, so I'm actually in Georgia. I'm in Atlanta, and it's like surprisingly really cold down here, and I didn't really prepare for the cold, and this is like the only warm piece of clothing that I own. Like, I don't have Miami like sweatshirts or fleeces because that's not really what you wear when you're in Miami. So this is like the only warm thing I have. I don't really hate the Tar Heels. They've never been that good enough to hate. But yeah, I am rocking a Tar Heels fleece because it's cold, man. It's really cold down here.
You gotta go get a starter jacket.
I need to get a starter jacket. And I like how Caneswear is, that we were selling football jerseys for a while. And then now maybe that's not the hot selling item. You got to get a jacket.
You got to get a jacket.
It's not the best time to buy a football jersey. You want an all-around jacket that you don't. This isn't for game day. This isn't for the tailgate. This jacket you can wear to a basketball game. You can wear it. I could wear it just down here now because it's cold. That's a reason enough to get one. So, it's back the college football landscape. If we were going to go to, because you miss 1 week of college football, and especially these 2 weeks that we haven't really gotten into. We obviously just missed one podcast, but last week was crazy. Heads have been rolling all over the place. Our top 4 right now is Bama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and LSU. Kind of, it makes sense, but I still think Ohio State probably wins out and finds their way back into that top 4. I don't see LSU staying up there with their remaining schedule ahead. Notre Dame is bound to just kind of stumble on one of these. You'd think it would happen already, but that's getting scary if Notre Dame is now in the mix. So
Texas is up to number 6, which I think this more speaks to how up and down this college football season has been, though. Texas is up to 6, Michigan at 5, Florida at 9. Florida, the Gators at 9. Really? Are they really the 9th best team in college football? I don't think so. Appalachian State ranked for the first time in their school history, which they're ranked and Miami isn't. Congrats to Appalachian State for that. That's pretty cool. But that really just speaks more to the fact that all of these Power 5 teams and the AAC, which somehow had 3 teams ranked at one point, now I think only has 2. There was a lot going on where they just kept losing, and the top 25 is a little outdated. Should probably be more of a top 15, maybe a top 20 if you really want to stretch it. But to find 25 teams that deserve to be ranked every week, it's really up in the air. So good for Appalachian State to be ranked, but I think it says more about just how mediocre a lot of teams are this year.
Well, I feel like we hit this point every season where the first 5 or 6 weeks you start to figure things out. You start to have that grasp. These are your top team. You had Penn State in the mix, and since they've lost to Michigan State, they've lost to Ohio State, they're pretty much done. Ohio State stumbles on the road against Purdue in a bad loss. So it plays out, and we haven't had a super controversial like playoff 4 since the initiation of this system. You could argue with the Big Ten championship, and there's been a little bit of gray area, but not tons. And this year, if Notre Dame has 1 loss, if Clemson has 1 loss, if Bama stumbles, the SEC is really good. It could be a mess where you have and let's say UCF goes undefeated. It could be a really big mess, and I'm excited for that, and I'm hoping for that. So
Yeah.
Um,
And I
let's
was looking on ESPN today, real quick. I was looking on ESPN today. They do an eliminator every week, and they actually eliminated UCF, even though they're undefeated. Said UCF has no chance at playing in the playoff. Just wanted to throw that out there. But Texas A&M, they believe, still has a chance.
Yeah, UCF. They're right. They didn't look good, but you go on the road and you beat a good Memphis team. You have a comeback like that. If you went out and there's teams with 2 losses, I think you should put UCF in.
I agree. And I think a lot of this comes from Missouri destroyed Memphis last week, but it was at Missouri, and it's also nowhere near as big of a game for Memphis. Memphis' Super Bowl is against UCF. They don't care about the game versus Missouri, to be completely honest.
Yeah, that's an out-of-conference game after you just put your heart into, it's like you have your thesis statement and you kick ass at it, and you have your elective that you want to pass, but who really cares? And so let's get into how many bets do you? I don't have that many. I found a few that I like, so I'm kind of going against the throw the bets
12.
and everything. You have 12. Okay, so you're going pretty heavy here. I think I have 8 total.
Wow, that's even less than normal.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put $20 on each of these bets and see what happens here. Last week, for my own personal betting, I went 4-3, but I had Cincinnati +5, and they were covering the whole game. They gave up 10 quick points to Temple because of 2 really bad turnovers, but then it goes to overtime, and they lose by Temple gets the touchdown, so I don't cover, even though they pretty much had it entire 3 of those quarters. So that was a bummer. I should have gone 5-2. I'm still feeling good.
Yeah, and I didn't do too much last week. I took a real bye. After everything. So I took a real bye. I just kind of sat down, watched some college football without a real rooting interest, and that was pretty nice because after Miami broke my heart against Virginia, I needed a week where I didn't have to have my guts spilled out there. And I'm a Lions fan too, so it was nice on Sunday to watch the Lions win. I count last weekend as a successful weekend, and I didn't make a bet, but now I'm back and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to let's start off on this Thursday night. We actually have 5 games on Thursday night competing with the NFL. And this is the first time that Appalachian State's ever been ranked. So they come out, their first game as a ranked team is going to Georgia Southern, who is not a bad team. I don't have a bet on this, Will. I don't know if you do, or if you have anything you want to say on this game, but this isn't an easy game for a team in their first game as a ranked school.
I don't really have anything on this game because the weeknight games, there are a good amount of them, and Miami's playing Friday. I don't need to kind of dip into these deeper weeknight games I usually want to.
Yeah, and I don't have anything on this one. I will just say be careful with Georgia Southern. It's a -10 Appalachian State. I think Appalachian State wins it, but it is at Georgia Southern. And Georgia Southern, they're 6-1. Their only loss is to Clemson. And yeah, they got blown out by Clemson. They haven't played anybody all that great, but they're 6-1 and Appalachian State is 5-1. Appalachian State has looked a lot better. But be careful with this one. Appalachian State has the name and everything like that. I wouldn't just jump and say, yes, Appalachian State, this is an easy cover. I don't think it is. So I would be careful with this one.
Yeah. And I believe we have West Virginia and Baylor playing Thursday night, right?
We do. Yeah.
Okay. So that's my first game on my docket here. So West Virginia is -14, and they're at home. I like this here mainly, and I have another bet that's similar thinking. West Virginia, it's kind of like this is the time to right the ship. You're only at 1 loss. You've only lost to Iowa State. You've been in the top 10. They got high as I think 6, right?
Mm-hmm. All the way to 6, yeah.
So, and especially you see all these teams losing around you. If you have a chance to win the Big 12, then you have a shot at the playoff. No ifs, ands, or buts. I know we have Notre Dame lingering in the potential of 2 SEC teams. That's always seems like it's a possibility. But if you can still win your conference with 1 loss, you got a shot at the playoff. So I think this is, West Virginia hasn't looked great, but Baylor is just not that good of a team. They don't have much of a defense. Yeah, they can sometimes find ways to score, but I kind of like West Virginia here. It's weeknight. It's at home. They're going to have the advantage in this game, and I think this is a game where they want to put themselves back into the national conversation, and it's a great opportunity to do it against a team like Baylor. So I got $20 on that. And then I'm only making this bet because I have West Virginia minus 14. I'm going to take the under at 67 because I think this could be like a 42-10 game or 40, even a 42-20. So, and I see if it goes over 67, then that's likely West Virginia covering that 14 points pretty easily. So I'd say it's about probably 60 to 75% chance I go 1-1 here. That's totally fine with me if I go 1-1. But there's that 30-25% chance that I go 2-0. I don't see myself going 0-2 with taking the minus 14 and taking the under. Unless Baylor somehow like pulls an upset or like keeps it a tight game. But I really don't see this being all that close of a game, especially with Baylor traveling on the weeknight schedule and West Virginia needing this game to they got to right the ship a little bit.
Yeah, and I like the under there because I could see this being like a 42-21 game. But I went a different route on Thursday night. I actually went with Virginia Tech at home against Georgia Tech. They're only 3-point favorites.
Oh, I have that too.
Oh, you do have that? Okay. Because I know Virginia Tech, they burned us against UNC. I thought that was a lock. I thought that was a no-doubter. They go to UNC, they almost lose, but they win. And UNC has looked a lot better after their bye. They played Syracuse really well at Syracuse last week, only lost in double overtime, 40-37. They had the game won until Tommy DeVito came in. And I look at this Virginia Tech team. There is not many places in the nation harder to play than Blacksburg at night on a weeknight game. Blacksburg at night, that place is crazy. I went there for a Miami Virginia Tech game. I know this will go against everything I said because Miami absolutely destroyed them. It was, I guess, 4 years ago now, whatever.
You're talking about Lane Stadium, right?
Yeah, in Blacksburg. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that hard,
dude. It's crazy.
I feel like everyone says that, but if you look at the scores, I guess when they have big games there, they haven't done that well against ranked opponents. I saw a stat on that where it was like kind of a myth that the stadium was hard to play, but Georgia Tech isn't ranked, and Georgia Tech just isn't that good.
Georgia Tech's not good.
I do agree with you that the -3, I really like this. You can also look at Duke as a common opponent here, that they both played within the past, I think, 3 weeks. I think Virginia got Duke at the end of September 29th, I believe, and they won that game easily. And then Georgia Tech played Duke, and I think that was like Georgia Tech only put up 14 points. I think Duke was in the 30s. So if you just look, and that was recent too. It's not like that was week 1 or something. So we've seen these two teams play the same opponent very recently, and the total points, I think it's in the 40s or 50s if you were going to do the transitive property thing. So to see this -3 with Virginia Tech at home, weeknight, I like where your head's at here.
Yeah, man. And Lane Stadium, yeah. I think that the problem is people forget too. Virginia Tech's never normally that good of a football team either. They're not like a perennial powerhouse in football. They're normally good, but they're never like great. You're not sitting here going, Virginia Tech's going to win the national championship. Very rarely do you ever say that. But that stadium, there's nothing else in Blacksburg. You know, like that's what they live for. They live for Virginia Tech football. And to get a Thursday night game, coming off a bye, you're in first place all by yourselves in the Coastal. You're taking on a far, far inferior team. You know what you're going to get from Georgia Tech. You know you're going to get the triple option. That's all it's going to be all game. I think Virginia Tech blows this team away. I think Ryan Willis and the offense have a field day, and I think Virginia Tech ends up winning this game 2 touchdowns. I really do. I think that this is going to be an easy one for Virginia Tech, especially with the extra rest. So I got 20 on this.
Yeah, I'm here with you. I don't see Georgia Tech putting up. I mean, they might keep it close, but 3 points. I mean,
yeah. If they're gonna win, they're gonna win by more than a field goal. And if they win by just a field goal, we push it. And I think they win by at least a touchdown, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see like after that game against UNC. Yeah, they won, but that's got to leave a bad taste in your mouth because UNC. Yeah, exactly. So I think they come out here and it's like, all right, we're back at home. Let's kind of get back on the horse.
Yeah, absolutely. And then before we jump to the Miami game, which is on Friday night, I just have to tell you about our friends at Sal Asterita and Cox LLC, a boutique law firm focusing on white-collar criminal defense and security matters. They've been featured and recognized in Florida Super Lawyers as well as Florida Legal Elite, and the partners formerly worked in the U.S. Attorney's Office and the SEC. Sal Asterita and Cox, attorneys at law. You can visit their website at sallaw.com or call their toll-free number 1-888-SECATTY. So Miami finally comes back after the most obnoxious 2 weeks to be a staff writer ever, because Everybody is so mad at this Miami team. I mean, it was an ugly loss to Virginia. N'Kosi Perry looked bad. Rozier came in.
The offense is a business. I mean, it's as bad as we've seen it in 3 or 4 years.
And then Rozier comes in. He wasn't really any improvement until that one drive. He had a great drive at the end of the game. I know it was slow. It was methodical. It was boring, but that's more on Mark Richt than on Rozier. That's just that offense has no tempo to it. And you know what? The way I look at it is Odenigbo. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but if he doesn't make that stupid penalty at the end of the game, at least the ball is back in our offense's hands. And we've seen Rozier do it before where he's come down the field all of last season. Most of our wins were close wins. I would have liked to at least have seen him get the ball in his hands with a chance to get the win. I would have liked to have seen that. We didn't see it this week. Rozier is starting against BC. It's at BC. Look, I got destroyed in the comments when I put the power rankings. I kept Miami at number 3 after their loss to Virginia. And since I've moved them to 4 and put Virginia above them, I refuse to put Virginia Tech above Miami because Virginia Tech lost to Old Dominion. We lost to Virginia. There's a big difference there. But I think this is a bounce back for Miami. And I think that a lot of people were talking before the season that Boston College is going to be a trap game for them. I think the trap game was Virginia, and I actually think I think Virginia is a better team than Boston College right now. Virginia looked really good last week against Duke. I think proving that they're pretty legitimate as a football team. They had their way with Duke. Their defense looked really good against Duke. And I think that Boston College has a lot of problems on defense. I think that Miami has listened to this now for 2 weeks. I mean, they were getting ready to fly the banner. I don't know if they actually flew the banner, but they were talking about flying the banner of fire Mark Richt now. And it's these giant reactions to these things. And you could still win the Coastal. The season is not over. You know, yes, you might end up with 3 losses on the season, but losing 3 games and winning the Coastal, getting the ACC championship game, playing Clemson, maybe hopefully putting up a better performance against Clemson. I don't think that's an all is lost type scenario. I know a lot of people expected us to just lose 2 games. They expected us to lose to Boston College or somebody along the way and then to lose to Clemson. So we lost to LSU, who's ranked 4 in the country, and then we have a really bad game against Virginia and lose by 3. Our defense lets us down at the end when we needed them most to just not let us down. They make 2 really boneheaded plays, so the offense never even gets a chance. But I think that Miami's going to come out fired up, and I think they're going to win this one. I think that I have them at -3.5. I have 15 on it for them to cover this. I think that they're a better team than Boston College. Boston College's defense isn't great, and I think Miami's offense, who needs to find a way to rebound and get into it, this is a good team to play when you need that.
Yeah, I think the best thing going for the Canes is that BC really relies on their running game, and BC hasn't even – they rely on that and haven't been able to do it that well. Mm-hmm. And Miami has a great run defense, and our defense has been good. It's just the fire Mark Richt stuff comes from – all right, Mark Richt was a quarterback. He's supposedly a quarterback guy. We've got 3 quarterbacks on our roster, and our offense is terrible, and a lot of it has to do with quarterback play.
Yeah,
and you can point to any offense and say, well, the quarterback's bad, but we have expected a great quarterback, and we don't have an answer at that position, and that's going to kind of haunt us all season. And it kind of gives any team we play a chance to beat us. Like a team like Virginia, who's, like you're saying, better than people give them credit for. But I can't say, oh, yeah, Miami's the better team. They've got this -3.5 because teams are going to hang around. They're going to be in games. We saw it last year with mediocre quarterback play, and we're seeing it a ton this year. When you don't have someone leading your offense, teams are going to find a way to, they're going to find the cracks. And our defense has kept us in games. But I am definitely more pessimistic on this season than you. I'm definitely more pessimistic on Mark Richt just because that's his brand. That's what we wanted him for. The defense has been great. So, I mean, yeah, bonehead plays at the end of that Virginia game. I mean, that was just even when I was watching it, I was like, I couldn't even be mad because we had played so poorly. It's like maybe we didn't even deserve a chance to get the ball back. We had played that badly that game.
Yeah, and here's my whole opinion on the matter. And, whether you're on Team N'Kosi Perry or Team Malik Rozier, personally, I've been pretty vocal about being on Rozier's side on this. But either way, I think the problem is the way that Rick has handled this quarterback situation was pretty bad.
Terrible. Go back to the Pitt game last year.
Yeah, and the thing is, right now, like, he believed in Rozier. He thought Rozier was the guy, and he let the fans kind of. I feel like he let the fans. I think he listened to him. I really do. I know that might sound ridiculous because coaches aren't supposed to listen to that, but Miami fans are pretty passionate, and I think he listened, and I think he heard the call for Perry. But you're the head coach. You need to make the call, and he clearly believed that Rozier was his guy. And then he turns and he goes to Perry. And I'll tell you what, I get the decision to bring Perry around FIU and UNC when it's two easy teams and hope that he's building up confidence. He beats Florida State, even though that was mainly the defense. He had short fields. But the most disheartening thing against Virginia was every time Miami got the football, they had 3 turnovers and he couldn't move the ball. He couldn't get a drive going. And look, I think that Perry, with some work, could be a quarterback for the future. But it's not like this is a lost season. We had lost to just LSU up to this point. And I think that you can win the Coastal and all of that. And what did Rozier do? He won games. And I know everybody's going to say, well, he lost 3 out of 4 or whatever. He lost one bad game, and it was the Pittsburgh game. Clemson was, they ended up being ranked number 1 in the nation going into the playoff. And then you lose to Wisconsin, who was very good. And that was a competitive football game. It wasn't like it was a complete blowout. And then you lose to LSU, who is now ranked 4th in the country. Those were his 4 losses. And to lose 3 of those games, you can't really say, oh my God, that's terrible. I know it's Miami and you want to win every game, but sometimes you're just not as talented. And I think there's more problems to the offense than just Malik Rozier. And you know what? I think that the right move is having Malik Rozier start this week, but I also think that Rozier probably should have kept starting until there was something that was just so dreadful, it was unforgivable. And look, here's the way I look at it. People talk about the ball coming out of the hand, and they talk about the future. And I know Perry's younger, so that's good. He's the future, but we can still win the Coastal now. We could still go into the ACC championship game, and who knows? You play Clemson, you're fired up after how terrible last year was. And also, I don't care how good the ball looks if it's going to the other team, because Perry had 2 interceptions against Virginia, and they weren't even close. They were terrible. And I know Rozier throws ducks, but he's not Ja'Cory Harris of ducks. He's just – it's not the most crisp throw, but as long as it's going into your team's hands, or at least giving Jaquan Johnson, at least giving I forget what his name is, but at least giving him a chance to knock the ball down. I'm sorry that I'm blanking on this, but at least giving him a chance to knock the ball down and like where Perry's passes were, the receivers weren't even close to them and couldn't do anything with them.
Yeah, man, it's tough. And that's why I'm not hopping on this -3.5. The over-under is set at 49.5. I don't feel – cause it's at the point where I don't know what to expect week in and week out. Like, there is talent on this team, but we're so mistake-prone, it's hard to rely on it. I don't feel good on either of these bets, so I am staying off.
Yeah. And it was Jeff Thomas, by the way. Sorry. I know that one is a cardinal sin to not remember Jeff Thomas's name, so I apologize to any Miami fans. Jeff Thomas. When he made that play, he played great cornerback on that one throw by Rozier, which was absolutely horrific. But yeah, the over, I can't trust Miami's offense to put up enough points. So I would stay away from that one, but I'll take 15 on the -3.5. And do you have anything else on Friday, or are we jumping over to Saturday?
I think that's it. I'm pretty sure my next game is the Clemson FSU game. Mm-hmm. If you want to go right into that, if Miami's not doing well, you can still root against FSU.
Yeah, which is always fun.
We got Clemson going to Tallahassee, and FSU has gotten it together a little bit. Especially we kind of hope so, because they kind of had our number most of that game. But it's at 16.5 right now. Clemson's favored. And Clemson stomped NC State. And maybe I'm just kind of overreacting to that game, but I've kind of been on this side of things for a while that if Trevor Lawrence has Clemson clicking and he's figured out that offense and they're rolling, like, they are one of the top 2 teams in the country. They are that good. And Florida State has had so many issues that I do think that a blowout is very likely in this game. Yeah. I think NC State probably beats Florida State. And what was the final score of that Clemson NC State game? I don't even know.
41-7.
Yeah,
and NC State's a lot better football team than Florida State.
Right. And I know Florida State's at home, and I think this is one of the noon starts, but it's a bet that from a betting standpoint, you don't want to take the road heavy favorite here on a team that's on the up and up, like Florida State, kind of getting things together. But it's just, I think Clemson's that good. I really do. I think this is your playoff team. They could go undefeated. So I'm putting my money on them. I do like the 16.5 instead of 17.
Agreed.
So if there's anything in that, I'm taking that for $20.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got 20 on it as well. After what Clemson did to NC State has a really good offense. Ryan Finley's a really good quarterback. Ryan Finley had 156 yards and 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. That's really good. And I think Clemson's defense, which struggled a little bit against Syracuse in the first half, I think that they figured it out, that defense. I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State gets shut out in this game.
Well, the way Syracuse plays, too, is always going to be tough for Clemson because Clemson's all about getting pressure to the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And Syracuse runs those like quick dunks, over the top. And that's just how Syracuse offense runs. And they're always going to be a tough out for Clemson. Yeah. But if you have a drop back passer, Clemson is going to give you issues. So yeah, I see it I see them winning this easily. My biggest fear is like a late Florida State touchdown, but I think this is one of those games where you might see Clemson up 21-0 in the first quarter. And that's what I'm rooting for too. I'm hoping for that.
I could see this game being 42-0 final. Really. Like, I could see Florida State not putting up any
points. Let's just lay on the hate here. Let's lay it on.
Yeah. I mean, because since we had to talk about
is bad.
They are bad, though. And I know last week they did look a lot better, but it was Wake Forest. And you want to talk about a bad football team? Wake Forest lost to Clemson 63-3. 63-3. That's pretty freaking pathetic. So, this week Wake Forest plays Louisville in the game. That's really what the college football playoff should be all about. It should be Wake Forest versus Louisville. That's going to be a great football game. Make sure everybody tunes into that one. You got to, if you want.
Tune in. I might
just for fun. Yeah, dude, if you want to watch a high school football game, tune into Louisville versus Wake Forest.
Well, who do you think's better, Wake Forest or Louisville?
Wake Forest. Louisville's dreadful.
Good. All right, I'm glad you're with me there at least.
Yeah, Wake Forest is better, but
should we hop right in on that game? Stay in the ACC?
Yeah, I mean, if you are, so I didn't actually bet this one though, because here's the difference. Here's the thing: Wake Forest has been playing worse of late, and Louisville since the Georgia Tech loss, I guess they looked a little bit better. But I think that,
I mean, if Louisville is a favorite to anybody that's like in conference.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that value on the underdog. I mean, Wake Forest is plus 2.5. Because Wake Forest, yeah, they're bad, but they're not Louisville bad, at least from what I've seen. It seems like Wake Forest has the ability to kind of hang in games with superior opponents, whereas Louisville will give up pretty much immediately, even to a team who's just a little bit better. Like Georgia Tech. Yeah, Georgia Tech's better than Louisville, but not that much better, where was it like 66-31
was the Louisville.
Yeah. So I mean, they lose to Georgia Tech by 30 points.
Mm-hmm.
Can Wake Forest cover 2.5? I mean, they're getting 2.5 points. Yeah. So I like that one also.
Yeah, I have a lot of mini dogs that I actually took straight up later on here that I like. I actually have a different ACC team at plus 2.5, but I hear what you're saying with that one. I think that's a good bet. Anytime you can get Louisville as a favorite. There's another one in here where I didn't bet it, but UNLV is underdogs against San Jose State. And San Jose State hasn't won a game all season. And I think they're pretty much widely considered the worst team in college football. And they're favored. So if you're looking for like a pointless football game to bet on an underdog, that's the one, because UNLV has at least won 2 games this year and it hasn't been against anybody that good. But yeah, anytime you get
on that,
I don't. I actually don't. But I saw that one and I thought about it. But here's my point, because I liked a couple of other games a little bit more that I took straight up. So I do think, though, anytime you can get a really bad football team as the favorite, take the underdog, because the underdog is a better team. And especially these 2.5 things, this is the whole rule of 3 points for the home team. It's normally like a 3-point swing for the home team. So pretty much that means if they were to play on a neutral site, Wake Forest would be favored over Louisville. So I think that yeah, this is a smart one to take Wake Forest here. But another game I have also in the noon slot is I have Iowa State minus 3.5. They're playing at home against Texas Tech. I had called the Iowa State win 2 weeks ago, and I didn't bet it, and I'm so mad I didn't because I called them beating West Virginia.
You did. You said this was the slip-up game.
I called it, and I was right, and I was so mad. I was so happy I was right, but I was so mad. But I think Texas Tech is kind of like a paper tiger here. I mean, they beat Kansas really, really bad, and they beat TCU 17-14. They lost by 8 to West Virginia. They beat Oklahoma State really bad. They can score points, but I think Iowa State is just a better football team. Iowa State, they had a bye week after the big win over West Virginia. They didn't just beat West Virginia. They beat them 30-14. They beat Oklahoma State 48-42. I know they lost to TCU 17-14, but TCU is just going the wrong way right now. So I think that Iowa State wins this one. They're at home. They're playing with a little fire. They've been in all of their games all year too. They've been a good football team. They've been competitive, and I think that they win this one by a touchdown. This is a game that I don't see field goals in. I see this being more of a 35-28 type final score. So I like the 3.5 because I think whoever wins this will win by a touchdown or more, and I do think Iowa State wins this one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I worry betting against Texas Tech just because they're volatile. Like they can score kind of whenever. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't feel good. I also haven't seen Iowa State play as much as a lot of other Big 12 teams this season. So I don't feel comfortable with that either. But yeah, I mean, Iowa State has some great wins under its belt. So
yeah. And then the next one, I'm assuming you don't have anything on this. I have the Duke-Pittsburgh game. Do you have anything on that game?
Well, I have an ACC game I'd love to jump to. I'm not sure the scheduling, but I have UNC going to Virginia, and I have under 51. Virginia's sort of been in – what's that?
I think that's a good bet.
Yeah, Virginia is a pretty stingy – they don't give up many points, and UNC doesn't have a very good offense. So I don't see UNC scoring more than like 17 points. They've likely scored 10. Mm-hmm. And then Virginia, they can put up a lot, but if they don't need to, they won't. Their offense isn't amazing. I mean, what was the final of the game against Miami?
Against Virginia, 16-13.
Yeah. 16-13, something like that. Give me that for this game. But I think Virginia Tech probably scores in the 20s. I see this as like a 27-10 game.
Well, and even
so under 51, I really do like.
Yeah, and even in the Virginia Tech versus North Carolina game, it was 22-19. That game was never in danger of going over 51. And I think Virginia's defense is better than Virginia Tech's defense right now. And I also think Virginia's offense is worse than Virginia Tech's offense. I think UNC is starting to figure it out a little bit, though. That's why I stay away from this spread. Virginia's on a high, and UNC. They're 1-5, but their last 2 games, they lost by 3 points to Syracuse and they lost by 3 points to Virginia Tech. Both games they very easily could have won. They led late in those games. Last second touchdown against Virginia Tech, and I think with 1:39 left, they gave up a touchdown to tie against Syracuse. So I think that in this game, watch out for a letdown a little bit from Virginia. Virginia had 2 really big wins. And UNC is playing much, much better since their bye week.
And if UNC can pull an upset here, like that, I think bodes well for the under. I think it means that Virginia is flat on offense, and UNC, if they're winning this, it's probably like 23-14, 23-17, something like that. So I don't see these teams just throwing the ball all over the place, putting on a show. It seems like this will be kind of a closer, grinded out game. At least I hope so.
Yeah, and then sticking in the ACC, I mean, might as well, right? I have the Duke at Pittsburgh game. I actually have Pittsburgh at +2.5. It's at Pitt. We've been high on Duke.
Our Blue Devils here, man.
Dude, after the way I've seen them play against some of these teams, I am. Even that Georgia Tech
lost it. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Even against Georgia Tech, it was 7-7 going into the fourth quarter, I think, or into late in the third quarter. That's what it was, late in the third quarter. And they got 2 quick turnovers that led to touchdowns, and that's what put them up. But they didn't look dominant against Georgia Tech. They looked really, really bad last week against Virginia. They looked really, really bad at home against Virginia Tech. So I look at this game and I say, you know what? Pitt played Notre Dame really tight. They beat Syracuse the week before. Against UCF, they lost by 31, but they had a lot of chances in that game for that game to be closer than it was. So I like Pittsburgh to win this game, but I'm going to take them at +2.5, save myself with the points. But I see this being a a really close game, and I'm off the Duke ship. I think that team is sinking fast.
Yeah, it's a bummer too. I got my Tar Heels sweatshirt on, but it's not. I did like that Duke team because people see Duke football and immediately are like, oh, they suck, and they actually had a pretty formidable defense there and looked good for a bit. So yeah, maybe we got to find a new kind of sneaky team to hop on. What's UCF doing this week?
I don't think UCF. Does UCF
do they have a bye?
Yeah, they have a bye.
It's weird because they missed that one game because of the hurricane. So it's like I already thought they had their bye, but yeah, this seems like their bye week, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we're just jumping all over the place right now because I didn't put these in the correct order of the schedule here. But another game that I like, and we can talk about this one quickly because I doubt you have anything on it. But BYU -7 against Northern Illinois. I have 20 on that. BYU changed quarterbacks. They went to Zach Wilson, I believe his name is. And I know that they played Hawaii, but they destroyed Hawaii. And their defense has been pretty good all season, BYU's. Their offense is where the problems was. Tanner Mangum has been really bad. He was really struggling against Washington. He only put up 7 points. And, he's been struggling all season long. And they went to this freshman, Zach Wilson. And I watched that Hawaii game because I had said Hawaii will cover this. And Zach Wilson looked good. And I know it was Hawaii, but this is Northern Illinois. And they only gave up 23 points to Hawaii in that game, but it was never close. Hawaii scored late in that game. BYU's defense really dominated, and their offense dominated. And I think that's what's going to happen here against Northern Illinois. I think that they're going to win this one by a lot. And Northern Illinois is not a really bad football team, but I think, this is the BYU team that beat Wisconsin with a quarterback now. And I think that they come out and I think they win this one by a good amount.
Interesting, because we've been pretty low on BYU. They beat Wisconsin, but no, I know. It's interesting now that they've and that's what a quarterback can do. So,
well, and that was something I wanted to say about the Perry thing, and I think I might have tweeted this from my personal account, or maybe I didn't. But when I looked at this, what Zach Wilson did for BYU, that's what I was hoping N'Kosi Perry would do for Miami, where he just comes in and it's just boom, 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 no questions asked. He was the better choice. Like Zach Wilson looked so good. I know it was Hawaii, but Perry didn't even look all that great against UNC. And you only have to throw the ball 12 times, but still, like I was hoping for something like what I saw from that backup quarterback coming in, and really how he changed the whole complexion of a team.
Yeah, we're still waiting. So maybe one day. It's been a long time. I mean, we had Brad Kaya, Ja'Cory Harris, Stephen Morris. Like, it's been a while since we've had like a real dude to just throw the ball.
Yeah, it's been bad. It has not been fun.
I don't like thinking about it. Let's move on to our what we got next. I've got TCU going to Kansas. I think a lot of people are kind of thinking the sky is falling at TCU, but if you look at their schedule, they went from playing Ohio State, then playing Texas, then playing Iowa State, then playing Texas Tech, then playing Oklahoma.
It's a hard schedule.
That's impossible. I mean, they've lost 3 of those games. They went 2-3 in that stretch, which isn't good. And you don't want to see, when you're kind of fighting for a shot to win the Big 12 to have 3 losses. Mm-hmm. I think that they, forget his name. One of their players got kicked off the team. They have some injuries they're dealing with, but they're going to Kansas here. And I think this is kind of with my thinking with West Virginia. Like, this is a great opportunity to just get right the ship, get your feet under you, stomp a team who you're better than. You don't need to be worried, don't need to be stressed. Playing Oklahoma or Iowa State or Ohio State, Texas, even Texas Tech, like those are all scary games where if you're not 100%, you could slip up. They don't even need to be 100% against Kansas. So I like this one to pump them up and get back after it, because TCU is a good team. They hung in there with Ohio State, and maybe Ohio State isn't as good as we thought, but man, I like it's -13.5 right now. I love that number. I think they win by more than I think they win by more than 2 touchdowns here, even though, and I think this number would be higher if they had had these 5 games kind of dispersed more evenly throughout their schedule, where they, have some of the back end. I mean, their back end now is they have Kansas and then Kansas State. They got a tough one against West Virginia, and then Baylor, which should be easy, and then Oklahoma State, which Oklahoma State has not looked that good this season. So they kind of have an easier second half, and I think people are probably lower on them than we should be.
Yeah, and it's interesting with college football, it's more where your losses come it's more when your losses come than to who your losses come. And, that's like the whole thing. Miami lost week 1 to LSU, and everybody's like, oh my God, the sky is falling. Because anytime you lose in college football, you know how much it impacts your chance to win the national title. And
which is fun.
When you lose, but when you lose games early in the season, it seems so much more important. Like, look at Miami last year. They went all the way to the end and lose to Pittsburgh in the last week of the season and then lose to Clemson. But up until that point, it was great because they kept winning. And I feel like if TCU had a backloaded schedule, everybody right now would be like, TCU's top 5 in the country. Here we go, especially with how other teams have lost. But they played a lot of their hard games already, and I agree with you. I think that they're a much better football team than Kansas. So, yeah, I like the minus 13.5. I didn't bet it, but I do like it's a really good number for a team going to play a really bad Kansas team.
Yeah, and a team that they need a big win, and they want it. And more to your point about when you lose, look at Michigan. I mean, they lose to Notre Dame week 1, and now there was all this talk about John Harbaugh on the hot seat, or Jim Harbaugh, excuse me. And now it's like, oh, they're number 5 in the country. Their only loss is to the number 3 team in the country. Yeah. So let's put the brakes on a little bit. It is. You're totally right. These losses can seem so bad, but I like TCU here. I hope, man. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe it is. They're just not that good this year.
They're that bad.
I don't want to believe that. And Kansas, one of my bad teams I like to bet against.
Mm-hmm. The next game that I actually have Kentucky at +7 going to Missouri, and I really like this. I think that Missouri destroyed Memphis last week, and people saw what Memphis did against UCF, and they're putting faith in that. Missouri's one of those teams that I feel like has been favored a couple times this season, and I've been like, why? Why are they favored? And I know it's at Missouri, but Kentucky's 6-1, Missouri's 4-3. And so when I look at this, I see that Kentucky just beat Vandy, and they didn't look great in it. They lost to Texas A&M. That's their only loss. They beat South Carolina by 2 touchdowns, Mississippi State by 3. Missouri lost to Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia back-to-back weeks, and the South Carolina game was close, but I think Kentucky's a better football team than South Carolina is, and I think Kentucky's one of those teams that they can win a road game, or at least keep a road game really close.
Yeah, I think that's where – because I'm on this with you too.
You are, okay.
It's the +7 is a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's like you think, okay, can Kentucky go into Missouri and lose? Absolutely. But if you can get them +7, I think that's great value. Like, they could easily buy a field goal. That's fine.
It's an SEC grinded out football game. It's an SEC.
And there's a chance they win. I mean, this is what is the money line at? I mean, I would say there's definitely more value in the 7 just because Missouri will be a tough game. Mm-hmm. But man, I'm with you here. I like this one.
Wow. So you're all done with your bets then, aren't you?
No, I got one more.
You have one more. Okay.
Yeah. I tried getting into the Pac-12 has my brain boggled. Like I can't figure out the Pac-12 for the life of me. So I have nothing on the Pac-12, and I usually, I watch a lot of those teams. I'm, a West Coast guy, but that conference it's a mess.
Yeah, and so I have a couple.
It's not that they're bad; it's just that they beat each other.
It's all over the place. Yeah, exactly. And we've kind of jumped over 2 games that are featuring 2 top 25 teams. So I just want to see where your lean is. We have Florida going to Georgia, and this one Georgia's favored by 6.5. I don't have anything on it. This is a top 10 matchup, which is just mind blowing.
Yeah,
if you were going to go
a Georgia lean for sure. Mm-hmm. But Florida, Florida's they're gritty this year. They get after it. I could see this one being close and Georgia winning by 1 or 2 points too. So I won't touch it. I would be surprised if Florida pulls off the upset.
I would too. This game's actually in Jacksonville, Florida. It's not at Georgia.
They've done this for the past few years. It's closer to Gainesville than it is
Yeah.
to Athens.
Yeah, so I think that, I still think Georgia's the better team, though. And I think Florida's kind of overachieved their way through this season. So I do think Georgia ends up pulling off the victory. But yeah, 6.5 is a few points that I don't know if I want to take that. I feel like that's going to be another one. It could be a 3-pointer. And then the other one that we didn't talk about, top 25, is Iowa going to Penn State. And Penn State has really been just not very good recently.
Yes, and I can't tell if this is going to be like a get-up game for them. And like what I've been saying about these other teams, right the ship. I don't know if I'm there with that with Penn State just because, I like West Virginia and TCU to right their ships because they're playing Baylor and they're playing Kansas. Iowa's a pretty darn good team. So I don't feel good either way because I don't want to take Iowa either because I know Penn State's going to be fired up as hell to get back after it. So I'm staying off that one.
Yeah, and Penn State only beat Indiana by 5 last week. Iowa beat Maryland 23-0. I just think the 6.5 is a lot of points. It's too many for me to lean either way. If this was down maybe 2.5 or 3, I might lean Penn State, but I don't know. I think that's another game I can see being 3 points.
If I had to lean, I might lean Iowa on that one.
I think I lean Iowa as well.
Especially because Iowa plays a lot of low-scoring games with that defense.
Mm-hmm.
So they keep it close.
Yeah. So back to the ACC and back to an actual bet I have. NC State versus Syracuse. I have the over of 64.5. I think this number, I think that's like a perfectly reasonable number. I think both of these teams probably score into the 30s. We just saw last week in regulation, it was 27-27 in the Syracuse game. I know NC State only scored 7 against Clemson, but that's Clemson. So I think that this is a little bit lower because of how bad NC State looked against Clemson. But I do think that NC State comes out, puts on a little bit of a show. Ryan Finley gets back into it. And I think that Tommy DeVito, it looks like, is going to be starting for Syracuse. He kind of came in and saved the day after Eric Dungy really couldn't get anything going. I think this is going to be high scoring. I like this game in the 30s. I like this game in the 40s. I think this one's going to be really, really high scoring. And everything that we've said about the SEC and the Big Ten, this is going to be the complete opposite. I think this is a really high scoring game. So I like the over of 64.5 right here. I have 20 on that.
Cool. Yeah. Over unders. I liked him way more early in the season. And it seems, I feel like it's a math thing. Like they have all this data on their, points per play, points per possession. Like they have so many metrics that go into these, and I'm like, I feel like I've got almost by like I can't. The only one I liked was that under of Virginia UNC, just because those teams I don't see them scoring all that much. But yeah, I don't know. 64. I mean, that's a pretty high number. So
yeah, and last week you hit the under for the Oregon-Washington State game, correct?
I did, and Duke Virginia. Did I hit that? No.
It was at 42. Wasn't it at 4? Didn't it go off at 44 or was it 41?
No, actually, you know what? I think I hit that by 1 point.
Yeah,
I think I had it at 44 and it went to 43 or something. So I hit 2 unders last week. The Oregon Washington State one I think I barely hit as well. Yeah. So they're getting tougher. Yeah,
so I have actually, I'll talk about my 2 straight ups now. I have both of these at plus 125, and maybe it's changed since I searched for it. But I actually have Texas A&M. They're going to Mississippi State. They're dogs, and sure, okay.
Yep, I'm on this too.
Yeah, sounds good to me, man. Like, love it. Give me Texas A&M. I got it at plus 125. Mississippi State's not good, and we've talked about it. Texas A&M lost to Clemson and Alabama. Those are the 2 best teams in football.
Exactly. And this is why I didn't want to jump down the ESPN article for saying Texas A&M with 2 losses has more of a chance than UCF. It's like maybe they do. Mm-hmm. They also beat Kentucky. And it's not like they haven't played anyone and they've only played Clemson, Alabama, and lost. Like they've played other good football teams. So yeah, I this line's kind of confusing. So I'm with you. I'm on the money line here.
Yeah, so
I think Texas A&M wins.
Yeah, and you had it at plus 125 too, right?
Yes, I believe so. Maybe it's plus 130 somewhere, but either way.
Yeah, and look, here's who Texas A&M.
2 points right now I don't think is going to get you all that much. Texas A&M could lose by 1, but I see them winning outright for sure.
Yeah, and if you look at Texas A&M, the rest of their schedule, at Mississippi State, at Auburn, versus Ole Miss, versus UAB, and then they play LSU the last week of the season. they could win the next 4 games and legitimately be ranked number 7 or number 6 in the nation going to play LSU in that game.
Absolutely. And they could be ranked ahead of LSU by then.
Yeah.
LSU, their schedule is starting to get really tough.
Yeah, exactly. And LSU 7-1. They have a lot of good wins too. But like Mississippi State last week, LSU beat them 19-3. Mississippi State has no business being ranked that week. They were ranked 22, and Mississippi State's just not a very good football team, and we've seen it all year. We've talked about Mississippi State a lot, but they're 4-3, and I don't like anything I've seen from them. That was one of those teams that they were just ranked because they needed to rank somebody. But they lost to Florida 13-6. They lost to Kentucky 28-7. Every time they play a good team, they lose, and then they beat Auburn when Auburn was number 8. But we've seen Auburn's not the real deal. So I think A&M wins this one outright, and then the other straight up win I have, and this one's probably going to break your heart, but I'm doing this based off of last week, me being super wrong, and also just seeing the way this team is playing compared to the team that they're playing. Washington State, straight up, they're underdogs at Stanford.
Yeah, I thought about this too, actually.
I also have this at plus 125. I just don't see Stanford being able to score with Washington.
Dude, but this is the Pac-12. Like, this is what happens. Like, Stanford beats USC. USC beats Washington State. And then Washington State beats Oregon. But Stanford beats
Washington.
And it's like it's nonstop. It happens every year with the Pac-12. It's hard to know how good they are. They had a terrible bowl season last year, but bowls are not the best. I mean, what we have going right now, we have the USC-Texas game to go off of. USC is going to play Notre Dame. Stanford played Notre Dame, which is a little bit of a bearing. We don't have all that much to go off of. Auburn, Washington was week 1. It's like I just don't know where I'm at with the Pac-12. So
yeah. Here's where I'm at, though. I've seen
there's just a lot of okay teams. Like Colorado is okay. Utah is okay.
USC is okay.
Oregon, Stanford, USC, they're all just they're good. It's like, Washington State the highest ranked Pac-12 team right now? Like that's kind of bizarre.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. And
be wary of this. Like Stanford they shouldn't, but they'll somehow win this game.
Oh, somewhere Admiral Akbar is screaming it's a trap as loud as he can in my face. But you know what? I'm walking directly into the trap.
That's what I'm saying. I'm without yelling it. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah. But here's what I'll say about Stanford. Their last 4 games, they've looked really, really bad. And I know they had that includes the Oregon win. And I know that they won that game, but they looked really bad for 45 minutes of that game. They looked really bad against Notre Dame. They looked really bad against Utah, and they only beat Arizona State by 7. So I don't know. I like Washington State. I feel like Washington State right now is 7-0 against the spread too, which is, that says something. So I like Washington State to win this one outright. They're only 3 points.
So Washington State is 7-0 against the spread, and you're hopping on them for the first time. It's just like one of those things where I feel like we didn't catch that train soon enough. Everyone knows about them now. Like they had College Game Day last week was the Oregon Washington State game, right?
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah.
They went to the West Coast.
Well, here's what I'll say too, though. And now I'm going to jump over to Oregon. I also have Oregon minus 9.5 going to Arizona. I think that Oregon is a better team. I think Oregon you could make the argument Oregon's still a better team than Washington State. I think Oregon's a really good football team.
Yeah, I thought about that one too.
9.5, that's not that many, and Arizona's really not that great. And I know Khalil Tate started to play a little bit better, but I just think that Oregon is a much better football team. So I like them to pull this one off, win this one by a really good amount. And, Arizona lost to UCLA 31-30. They lost to Utah 42-10. I don't think Oregon's going to have any trouble with this.
Yeah, it's a bounce back game for them.
Yeah.
I like it.
Last week was their letdown. This week's their bounce back. If they would have Arizona in between the Washington State game, I think they would have played a much better game against Washington State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have 15 on that. I don't have 20.
Yeah, I like that bet. I kind of wish I was on it, but Pac-12, again, it's like I go one way and then the whole league goes another way. So, yeah.
And then
my bets are done. So, you take this
home. So I'm jumping on. This is my last one. I have Boise State Air Force Academy over 58. I got 20 on that. That's my last bet. So I just like that one. You don't like that one?
Air Force unders are usually pretty good.
Air Force unders.
Because they run the ball a ton. And Boise State hasn't looked that good either. But yeah, you're under 60 points.
That's why I'm doing it. Under 9 touchdowns in a game with these two teams. I mean, look, Boise beat Colorado State 56-28, beat Nevada 31-27. Air Force against UNLV last week, 41-35. UNLV is really bad. 35-7, they beat Navy. I think that this is going to be a higher scoring game. I think both of these teams are going to score a lot of points. So I don't know. I think
worried about the clock a little bit.
A little bit. But the thing is, though, if Boise goes up.
If Boise goes up, then Boise's running the ball also, and then Air Force, they run the ball so much anyway, and you're burning clock on both sides of the ball.
Hey, that's fair, man.
I'll root for you. I'll root for you.
Thanks, man. That's all I really want at the end of the day.
Yeah. All right. Should we just run through these?
Yeah, dude. You want to run through yours since I've been
I
doing
got 20 on each. I got 20 on each. So West Virginia minus 14. That's against Baylor. I have under 67 in that as well. I have Virginia Tech at home against Georgia Tech, minus 3. Got Clemson minus 16.5 on the road against FSU. Got Wake Forest plus 2.5 on the road against Louisville. UNC at Virginia. I got under 51. TCU going to Kansas. They're going to cover that 13.5, hopefully. And then Kentucky plus 7 on the road against Missouri, and then Texas A&M on the road against Mississippi State. Texas A&M straight up.
Yep.
So I got a lot of road teams.
Yeah, and that's why it's a little tricky this week because a lot of the road teams are the better teams, and I did that too. I have one home team that I have though is Virginia Tech minus 3. Miami, I got minus 3.5 on the road. Clemson, I got minus 16.5 on the road. Iowa State minus 3.5 at home. Pitt plus 2.5 at home. BYU minus 7. Kentucky plus 7. North Carolina State, Syracuse over 64.5. A&M straight up plus 125. Washington State straight up plus 125. Oregon minus 9.5. And then I end it with what Will thinks is a really bad pick. Boise Air Force over 50.
It's not really bad. I'm just a lot of your picks. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And that one, I'm like, that's not what I like. So it could happen.
Losses. Yeah, exactly. Guaranteed losses. But all right, man. Well, yeah. If you want to take us home here, if you want to,
make sure to follow us on Twitter at Pick'emPod. We are hosted by Canes Insight. You can check out canesinsight.com and their SoundCloud page and their iTunes. You can find us all 3 of those places. You can also find us at College Football Pick'emPod on iTunes and on YouTube. So like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Leave a review on iTunes. We are sorry we missed last week. Been busy, and it was good to kind of take a step back just for a little bit, even though we missed a very fun week of betting in college football. The season's been fun. We'll take it home strong. Phil, you got anything else?
No, we'll see everybody. Good luck this weekend. We'll see everybody next week.